Wait, are you are you gonna count me in? Whatever. I'm just gonna go for it. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton, and as a child of the 80s, I'd love to say queens rule, but they don't. Queens lead. Being a queen means you are worthy to be a leader of people. The guests on our show do exactly that. They are leading the way in their businesses, families, and communities. And they're taking their rightful place in the spotlight, leading and inspiring the developing queens in all of us. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast.
Now here's your host, Amy Singleton, the queen of realness, leading conversations about business, life, and the real shit you want to know.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton, and today we are very blessed to be joined by Kendra Wesson. Kendra is the president of an accounting firm in Norman, Oklahoma called Operation Accounting. She has served businesses across several industries over 3 decades. I find that hard to believe based on how you look, but with all of their accounting needs, and specializes in CFO for hire and operational efficiency and profitability. She has started and helped many businesses sell as well. So she is an Okie as we continue this Oklahoma native series on the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm excited to have another Okie that graduated from Moore High School right here, went to OSU, and then got her graduate degree her CPA degree from Mid-America, actually, which is a great partner here in Oklahoma City. She and her husband share 8 children, 5 are grown, 3 still at home. I totally relate to that. And they reside right here in Norman, Oklahoma. Welcome, Kendra. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you for having me, Amy.
All right, let's talk a little bit about who you are. You were born right here in Oklahoma. What was little girl Kendra like?
Oh my gosh. So, funny enough, I was born in Lawton Indian Hospital. My mom was blonde-haired, blue-eyed, married a Native American. And so I was born there in Lawton, and I lived when I was a little girl in Indian housing in Gracemont and Fort Cobb. And I've actually went to, I think, 7 or 8 different schools over my childhood. I ended up graduating from Moore. I started there as a sophomore. That was the longest I ever spent at one school, was 3 years. And so graduated from Moore.
What was with all the moving around when you were a kid?
Oh, single mom. And sometimes I would live with grandma or live with aunt or, so it was a lot of trials, but it taught me a lot. Yeah. I can talk to just about anybody. I can walk into any room. So there were blessings in the trials. So
100%. Did you stay in Oklahoma all that time?
I did. When I was, I think, 3rd grade, my dad moved to Florida. So I spent every summer in Florida. And I actually spent my freshman year at Sarasota High School in Florida.
Oh, wow.
But most of the time I was here in Oklahoma.
Yeah. What were your ambitions as a young Kendra?
You know, I really wanted to be a mom and have a family, clearly. And high school, Moore had a fabulous program that was business technology internship. So you go to school half a day and work half a day. And that's when I started getting involved in bookkeeping and accounting. And it grew from there. And I actually went to college as an adult. I had 4 kids at the time, worked full time and went to college. I just couldn't grow anymore in my career without the college degree, especially in accounting. They just require a degree. So I had been an accounting assistant or clerk for years, and I decided I wanted to do something more. So I had to get that degree. So I ended up with 3 degrees at the end of the day. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What are all 3 of your degrees in?
So I have an associate's degree in accounting, and then associate's degree in business enterprise. And then, of course, my degree from Mid-America in accounting with a minor in ethics.
Nice. Well, minor in ethics, that's probably a really great one to go along with accounting.
It goes great with accounting. I think they planned it though.
It's probably a pretty good idea. I've had a few accountants that maybe need to go back and take that course. So as a single mom, were you a single mom? You said a single mom of 4 when you went back to school?
No, I wasn't. I was married.
Oh, okay.
But you know, it's doable. I laugh at my kids now that are in college, and they're struggling with 20 hours a week in college. And I'm just like, guys, this is doable.
Right?
You just have to buckle down and focus.
100%. I mean, like when I was in nursing school, before I owned a marketing agency, I was a registered nurse. I was in nursing school, worked a full-time job, worked a part-time job, was 9 months pregnant. Like there was not a free moment in my day. So yeah, I remember my stepdaughters worked at McAllister's Deli when they were teenagers in high school. And they would say they were working a double. What a double meant to them was a split shift. They would bring them in at like 10 and work them till like 2, and then they'd send them home and then bring them back in at like 5 to 8. Like that is not a double shift. Not a double. That's them cheating you out of your lunch break, a paid lunch break. So that is.
That's funny.
So funny. So talk to us about that time. You were working for someone else,
Yes.
and decided to go back to school. Was that with the ambition of starting your own business, or was that just with the ambition of moving up in that business?
So no, it wasn't to start my own company. I was working for National Oil Well Varco, which is a large oil and gas company. And I had a wonderful area manager who was extremely supportive of school. He even let me take lunch hours early or late to attend classes. And I wanted to grow with that company. And it ended up, some things changed in the company. I went to work for a different company, and then I started to have people ask me for help, and it would be, can you help me start an LLC? And so I would get on, research, teach myself how to do it and help them. And then one day my husband was like, you sure are helping a lot of people with accounting. And I was like, I know, isn't it great? And he was like, well, maybe it's time you start charging for it. And I thought, do you think so? And he was like, yes, I think you're doing this a lot. You're spending a lot of time on this, and people are willing to pay you. You need to just start charging. And so I did, and it just took off. I don't have to really advertise anymore. It's word of mouth, and people know when you care about the work. But the neat thing about it was I was never good at journal entries or sitting in a room doing accounting all day. And this gave me a way to serve people and help people, and they love it, and they're very grateful, and I feel good at the end of the day. So it was a fusion of wanting to serve and being able to help with a specific skill that people view as extremely difficult, but for me comes easy. So it was really, really a blessed road and a path that, to me, looking back on it, even talking to you about it, is pretty amazing.
Wow. And what year was that? What kind of, where were we in the timeline?
It was around 2015.
Mm-hmm.
We had we were fostering our youngest daughter, and she needed some extra time, and it worked out great because I was able to spend that extra time while I was building this up at the same time. So
Mm-hmm. Talk to me about your family. You have 8 children.
yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear and then you just mentioned a foster child. So like most of us women are, most of us are moms, and juggling all of that with a business is super hard. And I think I'm kind of in the same boat as you, is that like my kids are a little bit older now, but it wasn't always that way. So tell me about your family. I want to know.
So, well, this happens because I have a great husband who's just as good of a mom as I am. So I could go and do things while he's there. And we just, I really don't know how it all works. If there's a roadmap, there is something I started a couple of years ago where I do a devotional in the morning, and I sort of ask God for help on making all of these, everything balance, all of these challenges balance out, use them in the right way, and just make my day flow. And that's helped tremendously. I'm very committed to my family and my work and the nonprofit things that I do. And I think that for me, I'm just driven that direction. I don't know what else to say for that, but we have 8. So we have our oldest son is a musician in Nashville. And then our next son is a lineman, and he and his family live in Tecumseh. And then we have a son that has just started his own oil field company and does some engineering stuff like my husband. And then we have a daughter who's in her master's at Mid-America Christian for counseling. And we have a son who's in the National Guard. And then we have a senior, a sophomore, and the little one is now 8. She
Oh
came to us
my
at 3
gosh.
days old. So yes, at 40, I started the whole process over. But she's brought a lot of joy to our family. She was we had fostered a little bit, and she was actually I forget what they call it, like a relationship foster that we planned on reunifying, and that didn't happen, and I'm fine with that. She's the glue for the big kids and our family, so we're really
I bet
happy.
she keeps the big ones coming back now that they've moved out, huh?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny when they come in the house, like she runs to them, the first person, she'll sit on the front porch till they park, so it is really
Oh
neat.
my gosh. That's got to be great, because as those kids start to move out, you see, like, they've got, like you said, in Tecumseh, they've got their own families, their own jobs, and it's like you feel like you're losing them a little bit. It's nice to have them swing back around to see that young one.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Do you all still foster?
We don't. We're no.
No, you're like, eight's enough. Literally, 8 is enough.
She was born with some addictions, so she was very required a lot of time and attention those first few years. So we wrapped that up and moved on to other things.
That's awesome. Tell me about your nonprofit work.
So I sit on the board of Eden Clinic here in Norman, which is a pregnancy resource center. I sit on the board of our state Department of Education, and I serve on our public vocational school board, which is known as Career Tech, and then the private vocational school board. And those have been great journeys. I've seen education change quite a bit from our oldest, who started school in the mid-90s. To now we're that sounds so weird, but now we're in the mid-2020s, and education has definitely changed in the way we view education. I think it's always been a hot topic, but it's a very hot topic these days.
For sure. Yeah. What brought you into the board service?
I had run for office, and there were seats that came open after our new superintendent was elected, and I had started to become more and more political and met some people in the political arena, and Governor Stitt called and said there were some seats open and would I like to serve in that capacity, and I did. And so I jumped in with my feet and learned all the role of a board member for the state, and have learned a lot about education, teachers, what all they do, administration, many, many pieces to that 13-year education we offer our children.
Yeah, for sure. What does the public need to know?
I think that if I were to speak to the public, I would tell parents to be involved. Definitely get to know your children's teachers. Don't feel like you're a burden to the school. Your involvement, your impact is crucial. Support for teachers and administrators and what they're doing. I know behavior has been a recent hot topic in schools. Encourage your kids to have respect and good behavior at school. I think that COVID changed a lot in the way parents interacted with schools, and we weren't allowed to be there. We weren't allowed to go. And I feel like, I'm going to say this, I feel like I hear from teachers, parents aren't involved enough. And I hear from parents, teachers don't want us at school. So I think we're having a major miscommunication. And I think that the more we can get to know each other and talk, and there's a lot of electronic communication, any face-to-face interaction you can get with your child's teacher is blessed and needs to happen for sure on both sides. So.
Okay. What have you seen? What have you seen change from your 30-year-old now to your 8-year-old?
I feel that education with my the oldest 3, and I feel like it started to change during my daughter, number 4, during her schooling. The focus with the older ones was totally on education and being sure that they understood the materials. I feel like schools were very welcoming. I feel like, and I'm not saying they're not now, I just felt it was more welcoming, and I do attribute some of that to COVID. but it feels like education has become so politically charged that I think it's tough for these kids. And I think the best thing we can do for our children is, clearly you heard about my background. I did not come from usually little girls like me don't end up sitting on the State Board of Education, right? Like, it's an anomaly.
Yeah,
Most of the people I
sure.
serve with come from very wealthy families, great backgrounds. Not that my background was bad, but great backgrounds, a whole different lifestyle than I came from. And I believe what pulled me up to be able to do those things and that drive was good teachers that focused on my education and my knowledge. We didn't travel, we didn't eat out, we didn't go to hotels. I learned that through books and reading and experiences through other people. And those teachers were key to helping me understand that there was a whole other world out there that was different, so that I wasn't trapped in the poverty-laden world that I grew up in. I understood there was another world. If kids don't understand, if they're told, this is your role in life, this is who you are, this is where you belong, you're not ever going to whatever.
Yeah.
They ever break out of those roles. And there's a great book and a workbook called Bridges Out of Poverty that really helps people. I do understand that people that had a different upbringing have a hard time conceiving of the life that I lived, and that's fine. We all come from different arenas. But the worst thing we can do to our children is say, you are this, so the expectation is that. It's abuse. Let's not do that.
100%.
You can be
100%.
anything you want to be.
That's right. But we say it without saying it. At least that's the way I felt like when I grew up. You know, I don't know if I was necessarily blessed with as many teachers in my life as you had that opened my mind to those possibilities, because I, you know, much like you grew up. Now, my parents were married and still are married after nearly 50 years together, but you know, paycheck to paycheck, you know, like just we didn't travel. We didn't go out a lot. There wasn't like big, extravagant, I can't even say the word, vacations. I didn't get a passport till I was in my 30s, you know, things like this that I did not understand what else was out there. And I don't know if that is just an Oklahoma thing. I feel like it's probably an everywhere thing, but what do you think? Talk to me about that a little bit, because I feel like I was definitely put in a hole, like, oh, you're just a little girl from Moore, you know, you're a South Sider, you're a lower middle class, you're an Oklahoman, you're a this, you're this, like all of these labels. But I don't really remember anyone saying that to me, but somehow I knew.
Yes. And I think that it does happen with facial expressions, gestures, small phrases. For instance, in my family, it was just kind of an expectation that females were going to marry and have children. It wasn't the conversation we have with our daughters. We have 4 daughters, and the conversation is, when you go to college, this will happen. When you have a trade, this will happen. And we've changed our view on college in recent years, as expensive as it's become. I don't think sometimes it pays off. As a matter of fact, most times it may not. So we encourage them of the mindset of, when you do this, this will happen. And it is when your child comes to you and says, hey, the coach didn't play me this game. Are you going to go talk to the coach and say, why didn't you play little Johnny? Or are you going to talk to your child and say, how can we help you? What can we do differently? Do you need to practice more? What are your strengths? What is the coach saying you need to work on? What are the other kids who are playing doing that you're not? Where can we improve? And how can we help you to be a better you? Because when you tell them that, you know, we do it in the vein of creating self-confidence, right? You're wonderful, you're great, you're beautiful, your affirmations. But what if self-confidence comes from doing the hard thing with support? What if that's how you build self-confidence in yourself and belief in yourself? What if that's the
I'm placing the crown upon my head, this leaderly queen wisdom flowing out of you right now. That no, keep going. This is wonderful.
So I think about these things a lot, and I think about what's different today and all the little, you know, I visit a lot of schools. I'm very involved in my role. And I think sometimes our age group, and I assume you're about my age from our conversation, but our age group can think, wow, this generation, these are the people that are going to be, you know, leading us. And I'm telling you, from what I see from this age group, they're exactly like us, just in a different way. They want to prosper. They want to do well. They want to have their families be free, live in a safe environment. They want all of those things. And we collectively as a society want all those things. And the battles come in how to get there. What's the pathway? But we all really want the same outcome. So for kids, it's challenging for them when they're told that they're great and they're wonderful. And then they graduate high school and they get that first 40-hour-a-week job. And that boss doesn't think they're so great, right? For whatever reason, it may be warranted, it may be not. And that's a shock to your system when you've been put on a pedestal as a princess or a prince your whole life. And then your first boss is like, overtime, don't like you, whatever.
That's right.
I think it's really a shock to their system and it's hard on them. So I'm not saying be mean to your kids, but I'm saying be real with them. And when they do a good thing, congratulate that. And when they don't do such a great thing, let them know and then help them change it. Don't just leave them out to dry, but help them to change it. And
that's right. And I think too, there's got to be a bigger conversation with our children about failure, like always winning, always being the best.
Good.
What was great about your day today? Have you ever asked your child, what did you mess up today? What went really, really wrong today? That opens up such a beautiful conversation. Not only, telling your child how you messed up today, like, you know what, I saw so-and-so and I could have said this and instead I said this, or I had this problem at work or this problem with this, letting our kids know that we aren't perfect and then asking them how maybe they didn't do so perfect that day opens up a conversation for us to have those leading and guiding conversations, because especially as they become older, we go from that position of telling them what to do to now being a guide in their life. And then they have to make that decision, right?
And that role is, there is nothing about raising that child that ever prepares you for that role, I don't think. And I've come to the conclusion that those difficult teen years are intentional so that we start to separate and see them as a different, a piece of us, but not attached to us any longer. And we begin to separate out and then they go and, it is tough. And I remember having that conversation with my son and I was like, no, Dad and I help when you're helping yourself, but Dad and I aren't going to work overtime to pay your bills while you're sitting on the couch watching TV, right? Like if you're out actively working, you can work here and earn money. But, and my son was like, well, it makes no sense because that's when I need the help is when I don't have it. And I was like, so we had to go through it all again. So when you help yourself, that's when we help you. But until you make the initial steps, we're hands off because
that's right.
I'm not going to work overtime to pay for you to sit at home. I mean, it's pretty.
That's right. That's right. Oh man, raising those kids is tough, but I can definitely see where your heart for educational service came in with your background and going from school to school to school and having those teachers that just kind of infused that hope into your life. Can you tell us about one of those teachers that was your favorite?
So one of my favorites was my kindergarten teacher, Miss Carol, and I had just moved. I was, I had to have been 5. And my mom had taken me to my grandma in Fort Cobb and kind of, you're going to visit grandma, but I was living with grandma. So I started at Fort Cobb Elementary. I was reading in kindergarten. And do you remember when we had that little diploma and you would get a gold star? It was a gold star about this big and you got one for every book you read.
Yeah.
So she really encouraged me to read and told me about the gold stars, which I loved. So I read 50 books in kindergarten. And I remember her discussing with the principal, what do we do with her diploma? Because her stars have covered the whole diploma. Do we put them on the back?
Wow.
Or do we give her, how do we do that? And they ended up overlapping the stars and making it work where you could still see the words. So my kindergarten diploma has like little words in the middle, but all these stars. And another thing I remember about kindergarten is the milk. We used to have the best milk and it was such a disgusting thing that we took that away. It was whole milk. It was so good and so cold. And I mean, the milk is like another huge kindergarten. But Miss Carol was just very gentle and very encouraging. And she saw that I was an early reader and I had some of those skills, and she would take special time to foster those skills. And I'm sure she did that with everyone. But of course, at 5, the world revolved around me. So I thought I was the only one. And she just loved us like her own kids. And I was very rarely in trouble in kindergarten. Now, the following grades, I always got the talks too much, won't sit in her seat, but kindergarten was a great year for me.
Oh my gosh. When I think about kindergarten at Arthur Elementary,
Oh, wow.
where I went, Mrs. Wright in 1985, 86, I turned 5 on the day I started kindergarten. I was already reading as well, because my mother was obsessed with making sure I knew how to do that thing. Although like a love of reading was never later instilled in me. Like no one in my family really read, but I knew how to do it. Right. But I would get in trouble right away for things like, I brought my purse to class. And so Mrs. Wright told my mother she can bring her purse, but it needs to be in a Ziploc baggie so I can see what's inside, because I was painting my fingernails at the desk. And then I would get myself into trouble talking on the floor when we were having story time so that I could sit next to Mrs. Wright, because if you talked and you got in trouble, you had to sit in a chair next to her. And I didn't want to get my dresses dirty. So I would talk on purpose so I got to sit in the chair. Yes. I came home one time with a note pinned to my shirt about how I ripped my tights on the slide, and I was terrified I was going to get in trouble for ripping my tights. And Mrs. Wright pinned a note to my shirt to let mother know how I'd done it. But those kindergarten memories,
a whole different
they
world.
permeate, don't they? It was yeah. I'm 42, so yeah, I think we're definitely. You said you're 48.
I'm turning 49 this month.
Oh my gosh! Congratulations!
I know.
Fabulous.
Crazy.
Almost 50. This is the best time, isn't it? Like, are you just happier than you've ever been at this age?
I feel so much more grounded. I feel like I finally kind of get the way the world works. I feel like I have a lot more grace for people and where they come from, instead of being so quick to be like, not maybe judgmental, but that's not the word I would want to use. But I feel like I'm a lot slower to understanding and feeling things out.
Yes.
And to be a little hot-headed in my youth, especially when it came to my kids. You did not want to get between me and my children, but
right.
I definitely feel just more grounded and more comfortable in my skin. I do value that very much.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So, talk about you mentioned earlier that you're on the career tech board as well.
Yes.
My son is a graduate of the career tech. We love
They're
the career tech of Metro Tech and Votech. More Norman Votech specifically is where he went. But talk to me about that a little bit. To be someone so involved in education, obviously you went to college, have a lot of college background, but I heard you say like we're not necessarily not devaluing it, but opening up our minds to some other routes.
Yes, and I think that our career techs definitely fill that role. We have a waiting list currently of about 10,000 kids. I don't believe we should have any waiting list. There's too many of these mechanics, electricians, plumbing. I don't know if you've hired a plumber lately, but they make much more than I do. And there's a reason for that, the demand of those positions. But career tech really gives kids a pathway, and sometimes they do lead into college. You know, it's not a pathway necessarily that doesn't lead to college, but if you look at it now, and we've got 4 in a row, 2 years apart, so our family is really trying to figure out how this is going to look for us. But if you go to college and you get a degree and you've spent 80 to 100,000 more dollars, and you get out and you have this college debt. So the child goes to college, they get a guaranteed loan, it's handed to them, no questions asked. They may use the money wisely, they may not. They graduate, they go to find a job, and those college loans they're due, they're payable. There's no bankruptcy for those. So it is a total travesty what we're doing to our youth. That has to be a terrible feeling to have that much debt, more than, well, I guess houses are up over the $100,000 range these days, but basically a house on your shoulders that you've got to pay off at a compounding interest rate that's insane before you can even catch up the interest. You know, you make that payment, you're not even touching the principal. It's very, very sad. So we have that conversation with our kids, and Votech can create a pathway. We have lots of ladies that go into cosmetology and young men, and then they use that career, which is very well paying, to pay for college. And that's how it should work. And we need to focus on helping kids understand that. As parents, the American dream was first generation college student, the first one in my family to get that degree. And that dream is not fruitful any longer. You need to really look at other options. Our VOTECs have great nursing programs. They have sonogram programs, and all of those can lead into that career. You don't have to be CFO by the time you're 25. You don't have to be, kids need to be given some time to figure it out so that they're not strapped. And it's wonderful if your family can pay for college, but there are a lot of us in middle America that don't have the way to do that as much as we want to. And if your kid's not into it and they don't appreciate it and it's not something they want to do, is it really, are you really helping them? I would say.
That's
I would
right.
think about that a little bit.
Yeah, 100%, and I feel like you said earlier, like people are like, oh, these youth today. When I look at the youth today, I am so excited. I am so inspired. Yes. I see, like, I have staff, there are designers and programmers and stuff on my staff that are barely 20. And I'm like, oh my gosh, take my role. I want you to take over. Like, you guys are incredible. They're leaderly. They know what's available to them. I think that's one thing beautiful that came out of COVID is that people, started following people like Gary Vee, and they started understanding that they can make their own way. And that way does not have to look like someone else's way. Unlike me and, growing up in the 80s and 90s, I thought, well, you choose a way, you stay on that path, you stay in your lane, and you go all the way until you get the pin and the tie and the clock and you die 50 years, into your career. And like now kids are like, we have options. We know our options, and our schools, blessedly, thank God, are giving them the access to those options. I know when I graduated Westmore in 99, we had DECA and things like that, but it wasn't really out front. It wasn't, wasn't promoted a whole lot. And I did not know the things that were available to me. And, now our daughter, she graduated in 19. Our son graduated in 22, and two of our 5 children, and both of them have, gone back and forth in the internship programs, in the VOTECs. And our son, for instance, thought he wanted to be an engineer. Well, he took the pre-engineering program, was started in 8th grade, got accepted to that at the Moore Norman VOTEC. We took him while we were on vacation to the Colorado School of Mines. He decided right then and there, looking at all of their entry, all of the things that it takes to be an engineer, get into that school, what the job looked like. He was like, you know what? And with partnering with the VOTEC, he was like, I actually don't think that's the path I want to take. And he was very interested in one specific piece of that engineering. And then he went in and rolled into their automotive program. And now he is a very happy, making great money, 20-year-old mechanic, making more than most people I know, living on his own and all of that. Our daughter got the opportunity to do an internship. She thought she wanted to be a teacher. Southmore High School put her in Brink Junior High and Westmore High School teaching math to other students as an internship. And that, thank God, taught her she didn't want nothing to do with them kids. She didn't want to go get that teaching degree. She's now in restaurant management and is loving her life. So that's just, I love that the kids they're knowing their options, and our schools are putting them in front of them.
Yes, I think that's a big help. And I think that is a huge role for our high schools. And Moore has a great superintendent, Dr. Romines, and Moore is still doing things great. Moore gave me a lot of opportunities. I'm very proud of that school district. And we have other great school districts across our state as well. And what we're seeing now is a partnership with the high school, the VOTEC, and the local college. So down at Murray State College, they do something like that. So the VOTEC has been a great partner, because sometimes VOTECs and colleges can view each other as opposition.
Yeah, like
they've stripped that away, and they put the focus on the kids in their community. And so what they do is they go high school, then they do some of their VOTEC classes. The VOTEC communicates with the college, makes sure that what VOTEC classes can be counted towards college credit are. So that saves some money there. And then they've got RNs graduating with $4,000 in debt from Murray State College. That's amazing. That's doing it right. That's putting Oklahoma kids first. So I would like to see that replicated. And there are other districts doing it. I've been informed. I don't know who they are. I would shout them out. But we do have some other districts doing that. This is how it should work, Oklahoma. We should be doing things that focus on our kids first, get them on that path to success. And that's what creates kids that want to stay here. That's what creates kids who then in turn create a better state with a better education system through their innovation and learning. and being
That's right.
loved up in that way. And it's done very well. That's what we want here.
That's it. I love that. And, I think the next step too is, I spend a lot of time in the separate VOTEC systems. And, really, I at least I think, and I see that they're kind of starting to not integrate together, but partner together more and share those resources more. Is that true? Can you speak to that as someone on that board? Because it felt like for a long time, a lot of them were just kind of islands and had their own programs, and they were all sort of trying to serve the same people and not really working together to serve more.
Yes, so we have a new director of VOTEC that came on a couple of years ago, Director Hankin, and he has been a huge part of bringing people together. He's very education and children focused and adult focused with VOTECs. Of course, we have adults in those programs.
Yeah.
You are seeing a lot of collaboration. For instance, Norman High School, if you can make it to the high school, you can ride the VOTEC bus, right? To get, for those adults that don't have transportation, little things
Oh,
like
wow.
that. Focus on getting people working, getting people educated, getting people producing as part of, I don't want to say producing, but getting people participating as part of society is huge.
Right.
There are those barriers that we don't think about. There are people without cars still. There are people with, without, and anything we can do in that way to get them where they need to be. And if they're trying to better themselves, I'm all for getting behind them 100%. And he has done that well, getting VOTECs communicating, trying to get a streamlined process. The DECA now has moved to, or I don't know if it was always a part of VOTEC, but it's a big piece of VOTEC right now. There's an association for the healthcare industry. There's an association for the childcare industry through the VOTECs, where kids can join and get all those types of support and have collaboration after they graduate and groups that they're a part of. And it's really amazing to see.
I love that. There's so many options now. And even I've been a part of now, just because I'm in more area, but I'm sure there are other districts doing this. They have a yearly collaboration with local business owners asking, I had people from the business services and graphic design and web coming to me saying, what do you need us to teach our students so that they can come work for you one day? And I'm like, hello, talk about, normally people, in school, you learn these things. Then when you get out in the workforce, you really learn what you have to know. But now the teachers and the districts are starting to try and integrate our society with our children and with our workers and with our businesses. And I'm like, yeah, that's the stuff that gets people staying and wanting to be in Oklahoma and knowing they have opportunities ahead with legitimate people that are right here in their backyard. It just makes me smile. So it's so wholesome. It
is wholesome, and it's pulling us back together in the way that communities used to be. You were segregated to your community because of travel or means or funding. And then we all branched out and spread out. And you're right, we do need to come back together and work together. And I think what I'm going to do is next year when we do the DECA judging, I'm going to sign you up because I think you would love to see the innovation. It just takes a couple hours out of your day. And they're so adorable. And they just get up and give one little girl gave a presentation that I was like, you would have been impressed as well. She was spot on and she's ready to roll out. And it was
get this girl on Shark Tank. Yeah,
yes,
I would love that. We do a lot of, we spent last Saturday.
Shark Tank.
Right. We should they're already setting up, there are a lot of these Acton Academy type schools kind of popping up that are more, entrepreneurial focused. And so there's a children's business fair that one of them is sponsoring in Edmond. They've got one in Norman as well. We've been judges for that. This year we're doing the mentoring side, and to see these 5 to 17, 18-year-old kids come up with businesses and business plans and logos and marketing. It's fabulous. I love it.
Yes, we have LoveWorks here in Norman. My daughter was a part of that when it first started. And then Kidvation, which has just popped up, that is doing those things. And a senior in my daughter's class has a patent that she did through LoveWorks in her entrepreneurial, and owns it's a CFO of a business. That's incredible. It's incredible. But I think what we're saying here is that Oklahoma kids are incredibly smart, innovative, intelligent. And we need to foster that and help them grow that because they are just amazing.
They are, as are you. Kendra, this time has gone by so fast, and we talked mostly about education, but tell us a little bit more about your business and how, who is right to be able to work with you?
Could you repeat that part? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your business and who is the right person to work with you in your business.
Who is the right person? to have me come
if
in.
you're even open. Yeah. If you even have any more slots left.
So usually what I do is when you have a small company, it's really hard to have a CFO full-time making those decisions. So I have started learning client by client, different industries. I have a lot of medical clients right now. I do a little bit of work for our county, which is government accounting. And they will have clerks or accountants on site. And then I will come in however often, some clients are once a month, some are once a week, and check in and make sure that everything's going well, give them ideas on how to move forward, where do they need to cut expenses, how can they increase profits, a little bit of HR stuff, which is not my forte, but I will try, and just give them that earpiece to bounce ideas off of and to help them streamline their thoughts. So as you know, when you're in the middle of something, it can be really hard to see clearly, and it can be really hard to make decisions clearly. So someone from the outside can come in and give you a whole other viewpoint and hopefully advise you in the right way to move forward. And I really enjoy that. I enjoy learning about each industry and helping people. So that's mostly what I do, is just piece by piece, wherever they need help, specifically in different areas.
Nice. I love it. And how can someone get a hold of you? What's the fastest way to reach you?
They can email me at kendra@operationaccounting.com.
Perfect. And we've got your social media link. We got your Facebook and your website linked in the show notes. The website is operationaccounting.com.
Yes. Yes.
All right. All right. Perfect. Well, Kendra, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your journey, and your passion for education shines through. Thank you for everything you're doing for our kids in this great state. And thank you for being a queen that leads.
Well, I'm honored to have been asked. It was nice to meet you. And thank you, Amy.
Absolutely.
The Queens Lead podcast is recorded worldwide and produced by the kick-ass media team at the Height Digital home base in Nicaragua. Until our next episode, stay real, Queens, and go lead. Remember to tap that follow and leave your review. For freebies and more real, inspiring content you love, go to amysingleton.net and connect with Amy on our socials at @TheRealAmySingleton.
One more thing. This is the legal language, what my lawyer wrote and what I need to read to you. This podcast is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am Amy Singleton, and I'm just your friend. Although I may speak to many on this show, I am not a psychotherapist, a business coach, a doctor, a CPA, a lawyer, or probably anyone who should be giving you professional advice. This podcast is not a substitute for a relationship with your doctor, coach, or any other licensed professional. Got it? Good. Now go be a queen and follow me at @TheRealAmySingleton.